Peace and Safety Review. My name is Daniel Vallis and welcome to our channel. I hope you've been able to go out in the evenings and look up and lift up your heads and look at the beautiful upcoming conjunction. See Jupiter and Venus in the night sky right after sunset. It is so beautiful to see, and I've been watching in the news how even weathermen have been pointing out the astronomy and this upcoming conjunction, and people are sending in pictures because it's very visible. This is a visible sign in our skies right now. We can look up and be reminded Jupiter is at Pisces of so many things in Scripture, so many things that our Father has shown us on this incredible learning journey. And it is so good just to go outside and be still and be quiet for a while and just reflect on all that our Father has shown us. Get away from the busyness and the computer and the phone and TV, and get away from everything and just reflect and recall, review how our Lord has brought us to this very important time. He has shown us about the time. Why do we know what time it is? It's because our Father has shown us. He has guided us on this journey. He has brought us safely thus far. And so, friend, make a priority to go out tonight, look up, lift up your heads, look at Jupiter and Venus on the night sky as a visual countdown getting closer to the double conjunction that's going to be on March 1st and 2nd. Indeed, this is how I look at it. When I go outside, I'm looking at a countdown, and that's what I see. It's so many reminders of the peace and safety calls that are at this time, a countdown to the sun destruction, and we were told we will see the day approaching. And here at this time, when so much is coming together, we see a visual countdown getting closer and closer and closer, reminding us every single day we need to be redeeming the time and that we are running out of days and hours. And it is so incredible to just stand there and look at the horizon where the sun is set and see Jupiter and Venus, but then also look up and at the same time be able to see Orion in the night sky right above it and Sirius. So much is brought back to memory. We can't recount it all now, obviously, but it should all be brought back to memory when we look up and see all how these pictures come together. See Orion with his great sword, and just remember again that sun destruction is coming. It is going to be a time of judgment when Jesus Christ starts making his enemies his footstool. He's going to open the seal judgments. And all those events are going to go into play, fulfilling prophecy. And we can look up, we can lift up our heads, and we can see how the heavens declare this grand tapestry of our redemption, but also this grand tapestry of prophecy. And we can see it all coming together right now. Particularly, again, when we look at Sirius and follow it up through Orion's belt, that points directly to Taurus with Pleiades. Be reminded of the 7 stars, the 7 churches. Be reminded we need to take heed to what Christ told his churches, us. There is a soberness that we need to have. We need to be watching because it is being fulfilled right before our very own eyes, all around us. And this is part of why we need to look up. This is why we need to review all this information. This is why we need to look at the timeline. This is why we need to review so we do not lose sight of the reality. And all of the busyness of life and everyday commotion that goes on, we need to be reminded. And it helps us to just step outside, look up, and be reminded, yes, the prophecies are real. The promises on the last page are real. Everything that we are told we will see is coming together right now. And particularly as we look at the last page of the Bible, it's so many emphasis on the living water being poured out. We can look up at the celestial sea, and we know that Jupiter, it's over at Pisces. It's at the second fish, and Venus is about to join it right soon too. But then we can look across the sky and see Orion, and we know that the celestial sea comes right up to his foot. And so, again, beautiful reminders of the one who walks on water. It's so much of what our Father has shown us, so much that we need to review. We need to review visually. We need to hear it with our eyes. We need to review it with our ears as well, and especially hear it with our heart and hands. Redeeming the time. Our Father has shown us so much. Make sure you review our recent videos. If you are new to our channel, there is an upcoming double conjunction on March 2nd. Incredible. Saturn and Mercury right at Aquarius, and also Jupiter and Venus right at the second fish. So many reminders of the promises on the last page of the Bible. To hold fast to his words, he is coming quickly. We can be reminded about all this when we look up and lift up our heads. And again, just look at the panorama of the evening sky, sunset, Venus drawing closer to Jupiter. You almost don't need apps on your phone because it's so visible. It is so readily visible. You don't even need binoculars. You just go outside, look up. We could see Jupiter at Pisces. We could see Orion. We could see Sirius. We could see Pleiades. We can see it all in one shot. It is so humbling just to stand out and in the silence, just observe all that the heavens declare, because it should bring so much to remembrance about our learning journey. This time where we are right now is so important, and this is why we need to review and hold it in front of us that yes, we are here. over these days and weeks where we are right now. Again, we do not know the day or hour, but we do know he has been pointing us to a very particular window of time with so many pictures, celestial, geopolitical, warnings, last generation, so much in one area. And so this is why we need to keep it forefront all during this time too, especially. We are right over the target. Especially at a late hour, we need to be taking heed to ourselves, lest at any time our hearts are overcharged with surfeiting and drunkenness, just being punch drunk on the world and all the activities, particularly as we're approaching spring. It's so easy to get caught up in the cares of this life and the busyness of life, and so that day come upon you unawares. If we don't hold it in front of us, the reality of where we are, we won't live as though we are here at this very threshold. For as a snare shall it come on all them that dwell on the face of the whole earth. Watch ye therefore, watch yourself, watch the time, but watch yourself especially. Do not get caught up in the cares of this life. It's all about the change, especially when you can see it approaching. Watch ye therefore, and pray always. Watch your prayer life, keep the communication lines open with Jesus Christ, keep sin out of your life, cast off the weights, draw nigh to him with a true heart. Watch ye therefore, and pray always, that ye may be accounted worthy to escape all these things that shall come to pass. The rapture escape is tied directly to understanding what time it is and living in the light of what time it is and not getting caught up or punch drunk, being distracted and being caught unawares. So this is why we need a review. So definitely review the timeline every single day. Links are in the description box. Remind yourself where we are. Remind yourself where we are. And again, I want to caution you, we do not know the day or hour. We do know we're at a very important time where there's multiple things coming together. So that tells us a zone, a window to look at. We can also see that there's a lot of overlap, particularly in the celestial events and the geopolitical events as well too. So we will stay on our toes during this time and watch over a number of days all in this particular zone. Also noting, and this is why we need a review, that the enemy is fully aware of this time zone too, which they started announcing a year ago. You will remember all the news commotion on February 3rd, 4th about the balloon. And that definitely caught a lot of people's attention, particularly how obvious it was that they were making it news. It wasn't really anything big, but they were making it news. And it really hit the news on February 2nd, 3rd Eastern Standard Time, which was about the 3rd, 4th in China's time, dealing with the subject of a Chinese balloon over the U.S. And they were really blowing it out of proportion in multiple ways. But it's so obvious that they were parking on this subject about a balloon, a subject that does not normally come up in the news whatsoever, but that instantly reminded me we saw a year ago, almost to the day, really to the day, February 4th, 2022, remember the Beijing Olympics, their opening sponsor commercial was with Matthew McConaughey in the Salesforce commercial. That was shown at the Beijing Winter Olympics and also the Super Bowl in 2022 as well. And it showed Matthew McConaughey with a balloon flying above the face of the earth and him proclaiming, "It's not time to escape." And the whole Salesforce commercial was really kind of making fun of, we don't need to go to Mars and all these other places. We got things to do down here on Earth. But from a Christian perspective, you could see they were laying it real heavily that they knew they were talking about prophetic things, particularly how they described the days of Noah and Lot, and actually portrayed it with planting, marrying and giving in marriage, buying and selling and all that. It was right in your face. They know we are approaching the time of the escape. That's going to escape all the things that are coming, the things that are not here yet. When the snare springs, they know there is an escape. And they're mocking so many Christians who are not paying attention. They're not paying attention to the instructions that are given as well. Watch and pray. Take heed to yourselves. They know all this. And so here a year later, to the day, to see in the news suddenly a balloon come up in the news, to me that was, yes, they're sending out the balloon has gone up. Because you remember at the Beijing Olympics and the Paralympics, remember that also was when they had the big opening and closing ceremonies involving the dandelion clock, the seeds flying away, the gigantic clock, an emphasis on time, the record player turning into a clock, a huge emphasis on time a year ago. And here, a year later, to the day, they're bringing all that into remembrance when the balloon goes up, in a way, reminding us that there is a time frame. And of course, those events were spread out over a couple days, but also so were the peace and safety calls. And again, this reminds us and sobers us that we are not looking at a particular day. So don't get locked on a particular day, because all these events were peppered over several different days. It's all right within a closed zone, but We do not know the day or hour either. They don't either. We both know, though, that this time is very important on multiple levels, particularly here after the New Year's for trees in this particular watch. And I highly suggest you review our recent video, Celestial Radar Check, that really goes over a lot of the celestial information and prophetic information, last generation, and the Pilgrim's Prophecy, and so much that is coming together right here. It's spread over multiple days. Now when we zoom in a little bit, we can see we are at an important celestial time already. Between February 18th and March 11th, Jupiter is going to be in the very approximate midpoint of the celestial sea, but also the midpoint of Pisces, which deals particularly and portrays the story about the fish, the redeemed fish that were purchased when the Lamb shed his blood the first time. Aries, when he came the first time. We are looking forward to part 2 when he's going to pick up his purchased possession. And we are expecting the second Exodus, understanding that this picture is portrayed over a number of days. And it is at this important celestial declaration, reminding us of the first time, but also what still has to be done. This is when we are coming to the 1-year anniversary of the Peace and Safety Calls. When they started a year ago, February 23rd, 24th, depending on your time zone. This is coming up to the 1-year anniversary of when they started. And again, this is why we need a review. It happened a year ago, and sometimes it's easy for these events to get out of mind or not seem as present and urgent because we lose sight of it and we just study so many other things. But right now we're going to review the statements that were made a year ago. But it also becomes quickly apparent that it's all scripted and they're all saying and repeating the same phrases. So it is highly scripted. There is an orchestration behind it. Whoever is leading it definitely knows what time it is. These are put out at a deliberate time when the Lord enables it, allows it, and also at the celestial time that declares it too. Our Lord is about to start making his enemies his footstool. These statements are being made now. And I want you to reflect on that. They not only know what they are saying about the cause of peace and safety. They are the children of darkness after all. They know what they're saying. They also know what it's going to lead to. But it also shows you that they know a lot more than they're letting on.
We are committed to staying and delivering. All parties must ensure their safety and security.
But also the historical blame and shame of invading a neighboring country when its responsibility as a big country, as a permanent member of the Security Council, calls for it to work and help preserve peace and security, not to torpedo it.
No one could have predicted just how dangerous, inciting, and far-reaching President Putin's speech would be, with Putin arguing for taking the world back in time to an era of empires and colonies. The Security Council is charged with adjudicating threats to peace and security.
Russia is on the verge of provoking chaos in Ukraine and striking an unjustifiable blow to peace and security in the heart of Europe.
It is our collective responsibility, indeed our obligation here at this table, to maintain international peace and security, nothing less.
The situation is in danger of spiraling into a major crisis. We express our deep concern over the developments which, if not handled carefully, may well undermine the peace and security of the region. In the meantime, we strongly emphasize the vital need for all sides to maintain international peace and security by exercising the utmost restraint. I thank you.
In the present circumstances, the Security Council must act according to its main purpose, as holder of the primary responsibility under the United Nations Charter for the maintenance of international peace and security.
We note with concern the risk that an escalation of the situation in Ukraine holds for global peace and security.
When we consider the recent past of wars undertaken by choice, and when the Charter and international law were breached, eventually the safety and security of all parties was tragically undermined.
The international community focused with the same commitment, with the same ardor on the need for preserving peace and security. We, members of the Security Council, have the first responsibility for the maintenance of peace and international security. This creates the obligation to guarantee that the Security Council can perform its mandate and ensure the respect for the Charter of the United Nations.
We tried yesterday and today, before yesterday, to explain to you the logic of the decision made by Russia to recognize the LPR and DPR. And we focused on the need to ensure peace and security there.
The ambassador of the Russian Federation 3 minutes ago confirmed that his president declared a war on my country. So when I was coming here an hour ago or so, I was intending to ask the Russian ambassador to confirm on the record that the Russian troops will not start firing at Ukrainians today and go ahead with the offensive. It became useless 48 minutes ago. Because about 48 minutes ago, your president declared the war on Ukraine. So now I would like to ask the ambassador of the Russian Federation to say on the record that at this very moment, your troops do not shell and bomb Ukrainian cities, that your troops do not move in the territory of Ukraine. You have a smartphone, you can call Lavrov right now. We can make a pause to let you go out and call him. If you are not in a position to give an affirmative answer, the Russian Federation ought to relinquish responsibilities of the President of the Security Council, pass these responsibilities on to a legitimate member of the Security Council, a member that is respectful of the Charter.
Mr. President, we meet at the very moment of a military escalation we have not experienced in Europe for over a generation's time. The President of the Russian Federation announced a military operation on Ukrainian territory.
In my remarks tonight, I said that we predicted Russia's false flag attacks, the misinformation, the theatrical emergency meetings and the cyber attacks. But one piece had not come to pass. Unfortunately, while we've been meeting in the Security Council tonight, it appears that President Putin has ordered that last step. At the exact time as we are gathered in the Council seeking peace, Putin delivered a message of war in total disdain for the responsibility of this Council.
And a second question I'll just give to you now. This statement that he gave last night, the threat that he gave, the West will face consequences greater than any you have faced in history. Is he threatening a nuclear strike?
I have no idea what he's threatening. I know what he has done, number one.
This body, charged with maintaining international peace and security, was created to prevent exactly this kind of aggression from ever happening again.
People are being killed. A country in Europe is being destroyed by a more powerful country, its neighbor, that has decided it wants to turn the historic clock backwards. A permanent member of the Security Council to whom the world has given power and trust to decide on peace and security.
We believe the Security Council should strive to show a united resolve in pursuing diplomatic solutions to all threats to international peace and security.
Not only violates the independence, sovereignty, and territorial integrity of Ukraine, it also constitutes a serious breach of international peace and security.
This Council has a responsibility to act in the face of conflict, to protect international peace and security, to uphold the principles the world agreed upon in response to the utter devastation of the Second World War.
The Russian Federation's actions, which have assailed the purposes and principles of the Charter of the United Nations, have threatened the global order and the balance of peace and security. Its actions have fallen short of the higher standards expected of all those states that are considered as the enduring guardians of international peace and security.
Brazil regrets that the Security Council was unable to react to a breach of international peace and security that is still happening as we speak. Not even a different text would have been enough to allow the Council to fulfill its responsibility to maintain international peace and security today.
The serious developments in Ukraine, we all agree, undermine regional and international peace and security.
Due to the hasty and ill-considered intervention in Libya a decade ago. On that occasion, the African Union sought more time for diplomacy. Its counsel was ignored, and what resulted was not peace or the safety and security of the Libyan people. Instead, terror was unleashed on African peoples in the countries to the south of Libya.
Draft resolution of the Security Council that was submitted today. Why is it anti-Russian? I think that there is no need to explain. Why it suffices to have merely cast a cursory glance at the text. Why is it anti-Ukrainian? This is because the document, beyond any doubt, runs counter to the fundamental interest of the Ukrainian people insofar as it is an attempt to salvage and cement in Ukraine that system of power which brought the country to the point of tragedy, which has now been ongoing for at the very least 8 years now. We thank those who did not support this draft. I will not respond to those who just accuse the Russian Federation of abusing the veto right. Well, the main reason for our negative vote is not the fact that there is what is included in the draft, but what is left out. If its sponsors were to attempt to make it even remotely balanced, then they would not have left out issues which must be addressed and cannot be overlooked in the context of the Ukrainian problem. Specifically, they would not. What was left out is the fact that those who assumed and seized power as a result of the anti-constitutional coup in Kiev in February 2014, I refer to the Maidan junta, the way that they unleashed a war against the residents of the country's east, shelling residential areas with artillery pieces and multiple rocket launchers, raining bombs on the people of Donetsk and Lugansk. What was left out was the way that the Ukrainian authorities, with the encouragement of their Western patrons, consistently and cynically shirked their responsibility to implement the Minsk agreements, the linchpin of which was direct dialogue with the residents of the country's east. At the same time, what was positioned on the line of contact, the deployment of Ukrainian death squads comprised largely of radical neo-Nazi battalions, methodically, day after day, shelled the residential areas of DPR and LPR, killing women, children, and the elderly. And incidentally, this is ongoing today. Just today, 4 civilians died as a result of the actions of the Ukrainian armed forces. And how can we fail to mention the blood-chilling crimes by the Ukrainian nationalists as perpetrated over the past 8 years? The fact that the protesters against Maidan in Odessa were burned alive. The fact that peaceful protesters in Maidan were shot at by unknown snipers. The investigation into both of these tragedies is something that has been deliberately swept under the rug by the Maidan regime. At the same time, the culprits in the Odessa tragedy are well known. They are openly flaunting their presence. And yet an alternative investigation and the recognition by the snipers themselves unambiguously confirms that the slaughter on the at Independence Square was a provocation by the leaders of Maidan. We specifically last year carried out an informal Security Council meeting, an ARIA formula meeting on both of these issues, with the aim of sharing with Security Council colleagues more information about this. And yet in response, at best, what we heard from Western partners were merely hackneyed cliches about so-called Russian propaganda. How can there be a resolution on the Ukrainian issue without these above-mentioned issues being mentioned? It would have been wise to include in the draft of an honest assessment of the role of Western colleagues in inflating this Ukrainian crisis. Not only did they stand behind the Maidan coup, but they also effectively issued a carte blanche to Kyiv to carry out any acts, any steps that would be unthinkable for any civilized state. And this includes the egregious discrimination against the Russian language and consequently Russian language speakers. This includes glorification of Hitler's henchmen aligned alongside the prohibition on processions to honor the real heroes of Ukraine who freed it of Nazism as well as the religious schism in that country. As you spin tales about the triumph of democracy in Ukraine, the Maidan authorities and nationalists have been, with impunity, murdering their political opponents. We see the way the situation is being exploited in propagandistic exercises by Western politicians and media outlets. I would like to ask you, where were you 8 years ago? Why were you unmoved when there was murder and artillery strikes in Donbass? Why didn't you even bother to notice that there are more than 4 million people living in DPR and in LPR who at best were branded pro-Russian separatists? Why didn't you repudiate Poroshenko when he said that the residents of Donbass would rot in basements? Or Zelensky, why didn't you repudiate him when they called them non-people and specimens?
We voted yes, also having in mind the justifications for past interventions by other powerful states, using resolutions from this very council that seriously compromised international peace and security.
Peace and safety. Very obvious that they were laying it on real thick, putting out a message. They were deliberately putting out a message in events that they orchestrated themselves. A diplomatic mess and a whole geopolitical posturing that they orchestrated themselves, and with their other departments and organs as well too. They orchestrated it, so they are making a heavy emphasis on peace and safety deliberately. And the Bible even tells us that the ones who are saying it are the children of darkness. So we should assume that, yes, they do fully know what they are doing, what they are saying, what it will lead to. Yes, they do know that, yes, it is going to lead to World War III. So those high-level initial calls of peace and safety at the UN Security Council were on February 23rd, 24th. But we need to keep in mind, too, it continued over the next few days. On February 28th was the United Nations General Assembly. Everybody came together. Not just the UN Security Council, everybody, the whole General Assembly holds an emergency meeting on Ukraine, February 28th, 2022. And the UN YouTube channel even states only 10 such emergency special sessions of the General Assembly have been convened since 1950, following the adoption of Resolution 377, widely known as Uniting for Peace. That text gives the Assembly the power to take up matters of international peace and security, when the Security Council is unable to act because of the lack of unanimity among its 5 veto-wielding permanent members. Okay, so this is highly important. It was not just enough for the UN Security Council to make those repeated calls of peace and safety. Because of the political differences and tension, obviously, among certain individuals in the Security Council, the subject was brought up to the UN General Assembly. They brought everyone together, convening an emergency meeting. So this alone is also historic, touching on peace and security. What we saw was a whole cluster of historic events relating to peace and safety. It wasn't just one day or just one meeting. It was a quick, rapid succession, a whole flock of these calls of peace and safety. Not just the UN Security Council, again, the whole General Assembly of the entire UN came together on this subject of peace and safety. That was the subject. And again, that was February 28th. These calls for peace and safety spread out over several days, starting on the 23rd, 24th. So especially between now and March 2nd, the double conjunction, which is really going to be drawing the world's attention, look up, lift up our heads, we are at an incredible high time of a 1-year anniversary of the calls of peace and safety. We should be expecting the 1 year cycle of life to come around, and the contractions relating to the sudden destruction start coming in quick succession. We are right at that time of the expected delivery. The expected delivery, the arrival of the sudden destruction. So as you look at the 1 year anniversary here, remember, there's about a week where they were highly intensely talking about these same calls of peace and safety. And again, as we review it, what was said a year ago, we can more easily see the importance of why they're doing things now. Because on February 21st, just the other day, in 2023, they had another convening of the UN Security Council, February 21st, and the specific theme was literally threats to international peace and security. This is what they titled the meeting.
The 9,266th meeting of the Security Council is called to order. The provisional agenda for this meeting is threats to international peace and security. The agenda is adopted.
Friend, you cannot get any more in your face than that. Threats to international peace and security as the agenda, and they do it almost a year to the day, knowing the 1 year anniversary. And yes, if you check the news, you'll see a lot of hype of people saying, yes, we are coming to a 1 year anniversary of when all these events in Ukraine started. Yes, the enemy knows what time it is. They know we've also come full circle. And that is also why you see events in the world accelerating at this late hour too. These calls of peace and safety increased from the UN Security Council to the General Assembly, an emergency meeting of the General Assembly. Over the next few days, we are seeing that anniversary, leading up to the same timing as a double conjunction, March 1st and 2nd, which is also going to involve Saturn and Mercury, time and messenger coming together, reminding us we are running out of days and hours. And we also see in a few weeks, March 20th, that's going to be the spring equinox, a revolution and turn of the year, which is also pretty much going to be a day away from the start of the next Hebrew year as well too, the biblical year. Recalling so much that we've looked at recently with the 7 cows, the 7 good years, and then the 7 bad years. There's multiple things telling us we are running out of time. Right at this time that the enemy is also upping their peace and safety calls. Because they know sun destruction is coming. And when you zoom in on the timeline, again, links are in the description box, you can see the world is suddenly talking about nuclear war still. On the 18th, North Korea fired off another Hwasong-17 that they did a year ago. Remember that? Fired off an ICBM. China's envoy at the UN Security Council basically lays the blame at NATO and Europe that you are causing a lot of this problem. Stop your dangerous acts or something's going to catch the whole world in greater turmoil. You see these calls going out at the UN Security Council where the geopolitical players are plainly saying you people are escalating this and you're pushing this and this is going to lead to much bigger problems for everybody. Putin announces that they're pausing the participation in the New START 3 nuclear treaty because the U.S. hasn't been acted according to the treaty that they had before too. And Putin announces that they're putting more ground-based strategic nuclear weapons on combat duty, active combat duty. They're also making sure the Defense Department is ready for nuclear weapons testing, potentially hinting that they might even detonate a nuclear weapon to show that yes, they are serious about they will use nuclear weapons to defend themselves against NATO and the U.S. who are keep constantly pushing on them. Even Donald Trump on social media was saying how the Biden White House is really full of warmongers bent on triggering a nuclear war with Russia. It's becoming obvious to the world and everybody that the scapegoat is going to be U.S. because they are the ones pushing for this war, along with NATO and the EU, but it's mainly the U.S. is the one going to be blamed for what is about to happen. Particularly Biden's administration is going to be blamed as the scapegoat. It's all scripted. China and Russia are increasingly showing that yes, they are buddies together in this, they're allied, resisting what the U.S. is trying to orchestrate and push through right now too. There's media claims that Russia conducted an ICBM test of their own Satan II ICBM. The former president of Russia also came out and said that yes, we have the right to defend ourselves with any weapons, including nuclear weapons. All this within a few days, right at the same time that the UN Security Council is having a meeting with the agenda entitled about peace and security. The enemy knows what time it is. They know the reality of where we are. Are we sober with where we are right now? Again, definitely review the timeline. Links are in the description box. Especially at a time where we should expect things to be rapidly unfolding in the world, leading to the sun destruction that's going to come very quickly. And we are at a time of the expected delivery. We see the world events coming together with all these statements that obviously they're all on the same page. They're working in a very scripted manner. They know what they are saying. They're deliberately putting out a message of peace and safety because they know what is coming. And the more that we reflect on what they're saying and holding in front of us that, yes, they are saying this. They're actually saying what Scripture said they would say. And we see the venue where they're saying it. We can see, yes, they are the children of darkness. They know what they're doing. These are not just some random geopolitical statements. Right there in that very same room is the occult mural that we have talked about multiple times. About the white horse that's being unbridled, unrestrained. This is what they're working toward. Getting things ready for the Antichrist who is coming. Who's going to be riding the white horse. Whole mural emphasis, the graves, the bottomless pit will be opened. The beast will ascend out of the pit. They know the beast is coming out of the bottomless pit. They know who the beast is. They know who the Antichrist is. Have you thought about that? As they're making all these statements and they have this giant mural right in front of them and they're all on the same page, they know who the Antichrist is. They know who they're getting ready for. The Bible tells us these have one mind and shall give their power and strength unto the beast. Before he even shows up on the scene, they are getting ready to hand power to him. They already know who he is. That is why they are of one mind, because they do know who he is. It's not just some person that they're waiting to figure out who he is. No, they actually know who he is. That's why they can work together in a scripted manner. That's why they can work with devotion over a long period of time, over generations, leading and building, manipulating geopolitical events leading up to this time, this prophetic time. They already know who the 8th king is, because they know who the 7th king was. These have one mind. They are on the same page. They are all on the same page, and shall give their power and strength unto the beast, because they know who he is. As the children of darkness, they know who he is. They also know where he is, too. Again, we've talked about this in our recent videos. The Bible tells us very bluntly, he is coming out of the bottomless pit. The beast is coming out of the bottomless pit. The beast that thou sawest was and is not. The beast that was and is not and yet is. And the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th and is of the 7 and goeth into perdition. The beast, Antichrist, that is coming onto the scene that they're going to hand their power and authority to, he's already been here before. He's already been a ruling, powerful king before. They already know who he is. He died, apparently, as it were, from a head wound, as it were, according to Scripture. That is when he stopped being the 7th king, and that's when he stopped being. He was and is not. He is apparently dead, as it were, from a wound to the head, remember? He is not, and yet he will be. And he's going to be when he comes out of the bottomless pit. And they are preparing for him because they already know where he is. They know who he is. And they know when he is expected to arrive onto the scene, coming out of the bottomless pit. 1 Thessalonians 5:2 tells us this. For yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord so cometh as a thief in the night. For when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them, as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. But ye, brethren, are not in darkness, that that day should overtake you as a thief. Ye are all the children of light and the children of the day. We are not of the night nor of darkness. Therefore let us not sleep, as do others, but let us watch and be sober. Notice that Paul is making an emphasis. Who is stating the cause of peace and safety? It is the children of darkness. We are not like them. Notice he's making a distinction. They are not believers. They are actually the children of darkness. They are working to bring about the darkness. Sudden destruction is coming. They know that. They're not going to escape. They also know that too. They intend on staying behind and giving their power and authority to the beast. They know full well what's about to happen. They know where he's coming from. They know who he is. They can read Scripture. They even have this painted in the very chamber of the UN Security Council. The graves in the bottomless pit opening and the beast that shall ascend out of the pit. Revelation 9:11. Their 9/11 event that they're looking forward to. The one that they intend to give their power and authority to. They know exactly where he's coming from, and they even have a picture of it in the same room where they're making these statements. They're not ignorant. They know exactly who the Antichrist is. Definitely make sure to review our Bible studies, The Antichrist Kingdom, Part 1 and 2, and The Antichrist People. You can find links in the description box. It is highly important that you understand who is the Antichrist. Who is the beast? And why do those who are saying the cause of peace and safety, why do they know who he is? Why are they of one mind? Why are they on the same page? Why are they all working together on something that they know? Because they know who he is. And anybody who honestly studies Scripture can find out who was the seventh king, who was and is not, who was wounded in the head, as it were, who is not here now, but is going to come out of the bottomless pit. These have one mind. They are on the same page. They all know what script they're working from, because they all know the goal of their agenda, who they are working to give their power and authority to. And as we review these calls of peace and safety, and as we review the reality that yes, they have made these statements a year ago and they're still making them here on the 1-year anniversary, they know they have come full circle to that. They know this is a time of expected delivery, the arrival, the finishing of the approach of the sun destruction that's coming, that we are told we will even see. They know this is an expected time for it. Expected time for the beast to come up out of the bottomless pit that they have been preparing for over 100 years. Think about that. They're making these calls of peace and safety in the UN Security Council, which is part of the UN. And obviously this painting has been here for a while, which tells you what? It all tells you that they have known who the beast is for a long time. And they have been preparing to make these calls of peace and safety for a long time. When were the United Nations headquarters built? It started when Rockefeller donated the site to the UN in December 1946. Construction started in 1948 and was completed in October 1952. Pretty much right at the end of World War II, they were chartering and getting together the United Nations. Already getting land for it in 1946, starting construction in 1948, and was completed in 1952. The mural that is in the United Nations Security Council was also ready in 1952, and it has been there ever since. And it was painted and put there in 1952 because they knew in 1952 who the beast was, who the Antichrist was, who they are working to give their power and authority to. They knew that back in 1952. They actually knew it quite a bit before that too. But it's obvious when they hung the picture in 1952, the whole purpose of the UN Security Council, the whole purpose of the UN is to manipulate the geopolitical events to prepare to hand over power and authority to the beast. They have been of one mind for longer than most of us are alive. These statements and high-level meetings regarding international peace and security, they know exactly the consequences of what those statements are. They know what it's going to lead to because they're also orchestrating those events too. They are orchestrating the sun destruction. They are deliberately pouring gasoline on the fire. Because they know who the Antichrist is. And they know where he's coming from. The UN headquarters were completed in 1952. Completed. Which reminds you that they were already working toward that goal decades even before that too. With the League of Nations, the Council on Foreign Relations, and all that. The UN headquarters, the UN Security Council with its giant mural, it embodies what they have been working for a long time. They are of one mind because they know who the Antichrist is. And it is their devotion to that particular person and his ideals and occult notions. It is their devotion to him that spurs them of one mind to work and orchestrate all these events. They are of one mind, the children of darkness. They know that sun destruction is coming. They know that a snare is about to be triggered on the entire world, all them that dwell on the face of the whole earth. There will be a very limited escape of those who are watching and praying always. And then the restrainer will be out of the way. And then the son of perdition will be revealed. The one they have been expecting, the one they know who he is. And this underscores Paul's instructions. Therefore let us not sleep as do others, but let us watch and be sober. Yes, you will need to review when you hear the calls on peace and safety. Yes, you will need to keep them in the forefront of your mind. There will be so many cares of this life vying for your attention. You will need to watch. You will need to be sober. You will need to keep yourself focused, understanding what was said. What is their agenda? What are they working for? They are full knowingly getting ready to hand over power to the beast who they know who he is, where he's coming from, and what he's going to do. The more that we review what Scripture says and what is going on around us, see the reality of prophecy, we can see the insidiousness of the children of darkness, their intent and plans, and that should sober us, that we are running out of days and hours. And we need to be sober. We need to be watching. We need to be drawing nigh to the Lord with a true heart, because we are running out of time. The more that we look up and we lift up our heads, we are also reminded of the celestial perspective. Our redemption draweth nigh, which also means the snare is drawing nigh too. And the more that we review the reality of the time and where we are, that underscores we are standing in the snare right now. It is about to be triggered. The restrainer is about to move out of the way. Are we living as though we are standing right on a snare that is about to be triggered? Are we living as though we are running out of days and hours? Do we know what time it is? Review the timeline. Review the materials, resources listed in the description box. Be ye ready when to watch. So much information about the rapture, understanding of prophecy. The rapture escapes so much information. How we can prepare ourselves to be found wise and faithful servants, not foolish servants, not caught up in the cares of this life, not caught unawares. We can be found running for the prize. We could be found drawing nigh to him with a true heart. We could be found supping with him. Be found having an ear to hear, hearing so many trumpet calls at midnight, so much that our Father has shown us along this learning journey, coming together right here. Are we responding and living accordingly? Are we rising up in response to the trumpet calls at midnight? Are we trimming our lamps to be brighter? Are we girding up our loins? Are we going out to meet the bridegroom? The bridegroom cometh. Go ye out to meet him. This is what we should be doing, watching and being sober, watching and praying always as we rise up and go out to meet him, hearing him, heeding and obeying him, loving him and serving him. First and highest above all else, redeeming the time till he comes. Maranatha.